Imagine two people walking down the exact same city street, 10 minutes apart. Above them, a piece of loose masonry breaks away from an old building and plummets toward the sidewalk. For the first person, the brick grazes their shoulder, tearing the fabric of their coat but leaving them completely unharmed. They stop, catch their breath, and look up at the sky in absolute disbelief. For the next week, they tell everyone they meet about their miraculous survival. They feel chosen, blessed, and profoundly grateful. They call it the luckiest day of their life. 10 minutes later, the second person walks down that same sidewalk. A second piece of debris falls, clips their shoulder in the exact same spot, and rips their jacket without breaking the skin. This person stops, kicks the brick in anger, and spends the next week furious at the city's poor infrastructure. They complain to their coworkers, obsess over the ruined jacket, and lament their classic predictable misfortune. They call it the unluckiest day of their life. Strip away their reactions, and almost nothing separates the two stories. A falling brick, a torn jacket, two people who walked away completely unharmed. Yet one walked away wrapped in the warmth of good fortune, while the other walked away trapped in the shadow of bad luck. Which raises a fundamental question. Is luck a genuine force distributed by the universe? Or is it something we construct after the fact? Is it something that actively happens to us, or something we simply choose to notice? For almost the entirety of human history, we treated luck as an external, almost atmospheric force. Ancient Romans carried amulets called bullae to ward off misfortune. The Greeks had Tyche, a goddess who spun a wheel to decide your fate, completely at random, completely indifferent. The Chinese character for luck appears in texts nearly 4,000 years old. Nearly every culture on Earth independently developed the same idea that there is a force out there, invisible and impartial, that distributes good fortune and misfortune to people who deserved neither. We threw salt over our shoulders. We nailed horseshoes above our doors. We knocked on wood, crossed our fingers, avoided ladders, refused to open umbrellas indoors. Most people today will tell you they don't believe in any of this, but watch what happens the next time someone walks under a ladder near you. Watch your own instinct. These rituals aren't irrational, they're deeply human. The need to believe that luck is a real, influenceable, sometimes controllable thing is nearly universal, which raises a question that's harder to answer than it sounds. Why? To a statistician, luck does not exist. There is only probability, randomness, and the inescapable law of large numbers. The universe is a massive, chaotic lottery machine drawing numbers every millisecond. When something highly improbable happens, like a person surviving two separate lightning strikes, our brains scream that there must be a deeper meaning. We assume a hidden force must be targeting them. But if you flip a coin a million times, you will inevitably get a sequence where it lands on heads 20 times in a row. To the person flipping the coin during that specific window, it feels like magic. It feels like a streak. But to the mathematician looking at the entire million flip dataset, that sequence isn't magic at all. It is a mathematical certainty. If it didn't happen at some point, that would be the real anomaly. The human brain, however, was not built to understand large-scale probability. Our ancestors evolved in an environment where recognizing patterns was a matter of survival. If you heard a rustle in the bushes and assumed it was a predator, you survived. If it was just the wind, no harm was done. But if you assumed it was just the wind and it turned out to be a predator, you were eliminated from the gene pool. Because of this evolutionary pressure, our minds became hyper-reactive pattern recognition engines. We are fundamentally incapable of accepting pure randomness. We see faces in the clouds, shapes in the stars, and intent in the chaotic roll of the dice. This is amplified by what psychologists call confirmation bias. We remember the times we wore our lucky socks and won the game, but our brains quietly delete the dozens of times we wore the same socks and lost. We remember the eerie coincidence of thinking about an old friend right before they called, but we forget the thousands of times we thought about someone and the phone remained completely silent. From this perspective, luck is nothing more than a psychological ghost, the name we give to the patterns we choose to extract from the background noise of a chaotic universe. For a long time, that was a satisfying enough explanation. Luck was dismissed as bad math plus biased memory. A brain glitch, nothing more. But then researchers started noticing something the purely statistical model couldn't account for. If luck is just random probability, then over a long enough timeline, everyone's experience should roughly equalize. The coin flips should balance out. But in the real world, that doesn't seem to happen. Some people genuinely do seem to move through life encountering unexpected opportunities, well timed accidents, and open doors, consistently across years. Others encounter the opposite, just as consistently. In the 1990s, a British psychologist named Richard Wiseman decided to investigate this gap. He'd noticed that certain people consistently reported having good luck, not once, not twice, but across decades of their lives. Others consistently reported the opposite. Same basic circumstances, completely different experiences of fortune. So he ran a study. Over nearly 10 years, he recruited hundreds of people who identified as either consistently lucky or consistently unlucky, and he started mapping what was actually different between them. The results were not what he expected. Lucky people weren't getting better outcomes in purely random situations. In tests involving dice or lottery tickets, they performed no better than anyone else. The randomness didn't bend for them. But in everything else, careers, relationships, opportunities, the gap between the two groups was real and surprisingly large. And the reason had almost nothing to do with chance. Lucky people were more likely to talk to strangers, more open to abandoning a plan when something unexpected appeared, more likely to move through the world with their attention outward rather than locked inside their own heads. They expected things to work out, which made them more willing to act on uncertain opportunities instead of waiting for guaranteed ones. And when things went badly, when something that looked like terrible luck hit them, they were more likely to reframe it, not as false positivity, as an actual cognitive strategy. They asked, what does this open up? Unlucky people did something subtly different. They moved through the world with their focus narrowed, anxious, task-locked, less likely to notice what they weren't specifically looking for. When bad events accumulated, each one became further evidence that the universe was stacking against them. Wiseman tested this with a deceptively simple experiment. He placed a $5 bill on the sidewalk, then sent self-described lucky and unlucky people walking past it. Lucky people noticed the money. Unlucky people walked right over it. It's worth being careful here. Wiseman's work has been influential but also debated. Self-reporting and personality measures make these findings difficult to fully verify, and the results shouldn't be flattened into a simple formula anyone can just apply. But the behavioral pattern he identified lines up with what other researchers have found working independently. Across all of it, something kept showing up. Luck-prone behavior appears to be real, and it seems to have less to do with what the universe hands you than with what you're positioned to receive. So here's where everything clicks into a different shape. Luck isn't magic, but it isn't merely an illusion either. The universe doesn't keep a ledger. It doesn't know your name. It doesn't track who's owed a good break or a bad one. It simply hands out noise, an endless, indifferent stream of random moments. Those moments find everyone. What differs is the net each of us has quietly been weaving all along. That net is made of things like how often you talk to people you don't already know, whether you follow up on uncertain leads or hold out for guaranteed ones, how quickly you recover when something fails, whether you walk through the world with your eyes open or your attention turned inward, whether a brick falls on you and you look up at the sky in wonder or look down at the damage in fury. Two people can move through the same city on the same day and come away with entirely different experiences of fortune, not because the universe treated them differently, but because one of them had a wider net. And none of this erases the real inequalities baked into the world. People are born into vastly different circumstances. Structural advantages and disadvantages distribute opportunity unevenly in ways that no amount of curiosity or openness can fully overcome. The lottery of birth is one that behavior alone cannot undo. But within whatever hand you're dealt, What you do in the seconds after the cards arrive, that part isn't random at all. That's where randomness ends and behavior begins. What we call luck is not a force hiding somewhere out in the cosmos. It's what emerges from the friction between a chaotic universe and an open, attentive mind. Most people never examine the net they've built. They just look at what they caught, and they call it fate.